Hi, I'm Brandon Volker, and welcome to Beyond the Bar with Jack and Brandon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Beyond the Bar. Usually Jack Gatlin and myself, Brandon Volker, but today it's an impromptu one because Jack, and let's first give a shout out to Jack Gatlin and his lovely wife, April, his better half. They're in Key West celebrating their 25th anniversary. Our producer, their daughter, Emma, is still here, though, as usual. Behind the camera, monitoring the sound, making all this happen. But the reason we're here today, this is a rare opportunity, and first of all, I need to give a tremendous shout out because Wednesday of this week, I had to be in Frankfurt to do what I'll just call a kangaroo court of bureaucracy by our Kentucky Department of Education. And I've been involved in being a lawyer for now about 25 years. I've seen a lot of elected officials, and out of nowhere, all of a sudden, to my left, Mike Kleins, our state representative from Campbell County, and to my right, my client and good friend Bill Klopp, who has insanity he's being faced with. Mike doesn't just represent his constituents, he literally showed up for 2 days of hearing in Frankfurt to see exactly what in the world goes on down there, because he's actually tried to pass some bills, and all this did was show him that's a tip of the iceberg of what we're dealing with. So I guess Mike, just right off the bat, I mean, I know we talked about it, this huge palatial building down there. There were more employees just in our little room than it appeared working in the entire building. And I know I might be embellishing, but were you shocked by the lack of people working on site at the Kentucky Department of Education?
Well, I know what I saw, and I saw a lot of empty cubicles and a lot of empty spaces and an empty cafeteria. I can't speak to the 3-2 hybrid situation when it comes to work and not work, but it was certainly what I would consider a modern day ghost town.
Modern day ghost town. It seems to scream out for some form of Doge, whether you're for it or against it, needs to hit the KDE. So let's talk, Bill, so what brought us down there was, and basically Bill is a 26-year teacher.
Yes, sir.
Teaches music, band to elementary students.
Yep.
A child decides to kick another child, threaten to, Mike, how many times, what they ask whether he was walking quickly, bolting?
There was running, bolting, walking quickly, walking, and various, I guess, definitions of how quickly your gait was moving.
Prancing, whatever. And so to avoid this child who just kicked another and who was upset, darting into traffic, Bill just exercised what's called a one-arm, what was it?
Call it a one-arm assist.
One-arm assist, which the principal said he executed perfectly, and diverted the child, kept him from going out, but yet they see fit to come after you. And 2 days in Frankfurt, it's where we go. And now we get to experience another 3 months of brief writing and all that on whether or not this hardened criminal should get in trouble by the Kentucky Department of Education. Is that a fair assessment, Mike?
So, just in one correction, it was the vice principal.
My bad.
Yeah.
Now the
that's an
principal at the
important
time,
note.
yes.
Yeah. but
The only
vice
one
principal
trained
had-
in restraint.
Right, was very important. So, a little history on this. This incident occurred in May of 2022.
Yep.
Correct. Mr. Klopp contacted me in January of 2023, stating it's February 2023, stating he hadn't heard anything from the Educational Professional Standards Boards since the incident in May. And we're talking basically treating teachers professionally and with what we consider due process, or even a Bill of Rights. So I got involved and was very disheartened by my first few communications with the Educational Professional Standards Board. It prompted eventually the passing of House Bill 300, which we pretty much turned the EPSB and the due process for teachers upside down in a good way. And through that process, Mr. Klopp here brought on Brandon Volker to represent him, which was a godsend for all of us involved in trying to get a fair and professional process for teachers who, with the, I guess, disintegration of the family, I mean, teachers are put in more and more compromising positions, and they have to make split-second decisions. And then it goes on to what I consider the judging, shaming, and blaming process. And that's what happens at the Educational Professional Standards Boards. And I've come to the conclusion it's almost like the 5 stages of death, Brandon and Bill, and that they want you to get to acceptance as soon as possible. Well, what Mr. Klopp didn't do is he just didn't accept it, because what he did was, in his eyes, to protect the safety of the child, to actually be able to continue to monitor the 20 students that were in his care. So, I do believe in the process, the legislative process. I've seen some really good things come out of it. But when you're looking at an incident that happened over 3 years ago, and we are now just getting our first hearing,
3 years and 10 days.
3 years and 10 days, I mean, it's very disheartening. I've had a career in private education. My wife has a career in public education. We're an education family, Brandon and Bill. And, we made some great strides with 300, but today reaffirmed some of the beliefs we had prior to 300, and it reaffirms some of the things we need to do moving forward.
Well, let me see, Bill, I mean, obviously you've been through this, I have clients that I consider principled, put you at the top of the list, I mean,
Well,
clearly.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're principled, you're standing up for this, you're kind of fighting this bureaucracy on steroids down in Frankfurt. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it's a fair statement. It's exhausting, but yes, I am.
And basically, the correspondence they sent you, because 2 kids were sitting in a chair of each other and you told them to stay out of each other's Kool-Aid, then they inferred that you were promoting LGBTQ suicide in Kentucky. Now, they did walk away from that, but that was the first year trying to explain to them that you weren't the term Kool-Aid had nothing to do with somebody being gay.
One of the highlights of this, after I hired Brandon, was him sending me correspondence he sent to EPSB. And he's had an email, and he took a picture from like a phone of Urban Dictionary. The definition of stay out of my Kool-Aid means keep your personal space. Stay out of each other's Kool-Aid. Stay out of each other's personal space. Then he sent a YouTube video of Cory Booker telling Joe Biden that he was tasting his Kool-Aid and not the flavor. And under it, he typed, I do not believe that Mr. Booker is saying anything about, President Biden's bedroom habits. And, and sent that. And he's like, so I'm still trying to understand. It's pretty insane. The most insane part to me about this is coming from an educational family. My father taught for 42 years. I grew up, my mother was a nurse at nights at the old St. Ian Covington. My mom used to drop us off at Bellevue High School where my dad taught, math and physics, and we'd go in there and sit in the back of his classroom and wait for him to get done, and then we'd head down to Bim Flora Gym. We'd go to McDonald's, he'd get us Happy Meals, my 2 sisters, my brother and I. We'd go to Bim Flora Gym, he'd have practice, he'd coach his teams, all this stuff, and we'd be hanging out. So, I'd grown up in schools. But, the wildest part about this is that I had always heard from him, my stepmother, who was a 30-plus year educator. I've got siblings who are educators, in-laws who are educators. It was the idea of most things can be resolved with just a conversation. I was blunt with the fact that during this process, and this was one thing that I know Mr. Klein's really worked hard on with House Bill 300 was rectifying. Nobody from E EPSB ever reached out to me to talk to me.
Well, and that was evident. I mean, let's be honest, during the
Nobody
hearing,
ever,
what was kind of crazy was you had a former superintendent of, Boone County's what, the third largest school district in the state?
Yeah.
Behind Jefferson and Fayette?
It's either the third or second.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. And he didn't even know of a policy that required documentation. The principal, you know, to your point, there's no correspondence. Maybe that's why when we got all these people on a 3-2 working remotely, sometime pick up the phone. I mean, Mike, you were at the diocese, you were superintendent of the diocese. I mean, would you have ever operated in the manner in which we're seeing education operating now? I mean, you strike me as a guy that probably picked up the phone. Is that a fair statement?
Well, we certainly worked for the common good, and, we try to educate the whole child, and I would tell, as an administrator, I would tell the teachers, go teach. And anything after that, I'll take care of. So if there are incidences or there are situations that are outside the realm of teaching and that I need to get involved in, I think I want to have their back.
Hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong, and to the EPSB's credit, there are some teachers that do some really
Sure,
egregious
and that
things, and
those
they-
need to be expedited and dealt with
they-
immediately.
Absolutely. And I know I have a lot of hope, and I'm excited about Commissioner Fletcher, and I know Dr. Brewer was just brought on as Associate Commissioner to help with the EPSB on the certification and licensing side. My experience, at least as a state representative, has been with the legal side of EPSB, and that's where I've been the most disheartened when it comes to.
And that'd be the Deputy Commissioner, Todd Allen.
That's who.
Who doesn't even want to return your call?
Well,
He's not a phone guy, I guess, either, is he?
that's who ultimately the 4 attorneys who were in the room today.
Yeah, it took 4 attorneys too. This hardened criminal needs 4 attorneys.
Over
going
2
at it.
days
Over 2 days.
to try to
Okay, bad
justify. Yes, so, that was a little eye-opening also. So, they report to him. So, there are different parts of EPSB, and I do want to be clear that I am excited about Commissioner Fletcher, and I am excited about the Associate Commissioner, Dr. Brewer. For the past couple of years, it has been the legal side, and we witnessed it the last 2 days.
So, we're down there. I mean, with every break, we walk through there. I mean, do we just, we're seeing it daily. I mean, every school district money is tight. And I think you told me it's either 50%, either slightly over or just below. Basically, half of our state budget goes to education. Is that accurate?
It's in that range.
I mean,
It's
so
certainly in that
half of
range.
every dollar in this state, as we sit here today, is going to education. It would just seem to me, from what I witnessed down there, how do we pull those dollars away from that monstrosity and put that money local? Give these people, because I will say this, and you and I both, you were working hard trying to do urban school improvements. What people don't get, they want to label people, Democrat, Republican. I've never met a board member in an urban school versus a rural school. They all care about the kids. At the end of the day, they're the ones that will roll up the sleeves and try and do what's right. And I don't think it's a partisan issue or anything else. But just my impression is we're not giving them the ability and the authority to kind of handle their stuff local. Instead, we've got what we witnessed today. I mean, is the only way to fix that to basically cut that thing tremendously and send those resources back to help what I always say, boots on the ground, basically?
Well, it's certainly complicated, and it's certainly messy, education on all levels. So, I'm not a big believer of blowing things up. I do think, and throughout my career, there have been examples of where you have to destroy in order to build. Now, I think destroying, can be a method of that, peeling off the onion, peeling the onion, layers of the onion, I'm sorry. So, I've enjoyed working and collaborating with the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents, the Kentucky Association of School Administrators, my own two public school superintendents, and Superintendent Robinson and Superintendent Dr. Shelley Wilson. I've enjoyed working with the KDE and the KEA, but there are some real issues, and we witnessed them today, and I know you've lived them over the past couple years. The local level, in this particular situation, I just think if EPSB would have just taken the recommendation of the local level and said, you know the context, you know the teacher, you know the school climate, we're going to go with what you recommended for Mr. Klopp, and we're going to be done with it. But what we find is getting into the weeds.
Mhm.
You and I have talked about that.
These aren't just weeds, these are weeds on top of weeds.
And the last couple of days have been just that. It's like, how do you define, let's see, how do you define emergency? How do you define bolt? How do you define imminent? And I'm going like, really? That is why we're here for Mr. Klopp, to wordsmith and have semantics, when at the core of the issue, the local level made a decision. And I would always view discipline as two things. You could teach or you could punish. And what the Boone County School District tried to do, at least the witness we heard from today, just try to teach.
Mhm.
Take it as a teachable moment. We're going to get you some training, and we're going to move forward. But I felt that the Educational Professional Standards Board is more about punishing.
Yes.
And I don't think that works in schools. I think it's a dehumanizing, not a very humanistic approach.
I have a daughter who is going to start, actually she started this week to be a teacher, special ed. And she's won awards as an instructional assistant. She works with the special needs kids, does a great job, and she's praised. And as a parent, I would probably tell her not to do it, not to go into it because of what I saw there. I mean, do you think, you look at it, if your house members witnessed that, do you think any of them would have left that building feeling positive about that agency and the way they were conducting themselves?
Well, I don't like why we were there and how we got there. To your point, I have a son I think would be a really good teacher, and he would be a legacy for me and my wife. But I would never want him to go through something that Mr. Klopp has gone through. And I think financially, you can make it work. Everybody could always make more money, and I don't disagree that teachers should make more money. It's how we get there. But these other extrinsic rewards are diminishing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just say the intrinsic rewards are diminishing. And to have your certification, in jeopardy or jeopardized for over 3 years, so living in anguish and anxiety because, as you said, the bureaucracy, it's very, very sad. Now, House Bill 300, we expedited it all. We think it can all be done at the maximum of 3 months. But that didn't come without clawing and scratching.
Well, and it takes at some point, like for example, in our area, I know our Commonwealth attorneys in Boone County and Campbell County, people who represent government, county attorneys, Commonwealth attorneys, they all have sound judgment. They look at things, like Rob Sanders recently just had to examine an officer shooting out in Boone County Special. They do an extensive analysis. They come out, they look at everything. They have to make judgment. They have to do that. There's really none of that going on down there that I witnessed. Because at the end of the day, everybody who has watched this video is like, this was a colossal waste of time. Mr. Klopp did nothing wrong. But it's like we just throw common sense out the window. And unfortunately, more people feel that about education these days, that they don't feel there's common sense being applied. And I've never seen it to where it appears people are losing more and more faith in our education system, and it's because of stuff like that, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, it's certainly, like I said earlier, with the disintegration of the family. I mean, we have more situations at schools, and we got to ask, who's defending the teacher?
Mhm.
Who's giving the teacher the benefit of the doubt? Who's going to help the teacher when the teacher gets punched, kicked, sent to the hospital? Is that going to become the new norm? Or are we going to put some things in place that can rectify and remedy that?
Well, in like, I know you've experienced it, I mean, it's all over the news right now. A dear friend of mine, Tim Sullivan, Coach Cooper, now St. Henry. I mean, it is people think that sports, band, whatever it is, it's not about winning and losing. But when kids go to school, I always view it's more the holistic approach. You want teachers that aren't just teaching how to read and write and all. You want people that are teaching students to be good future adults, good people. Good friend of you and I, John Brannon. I remember when John was at Northern, I was so impressed when he would let me bring my son to the practices and all. He taught those kids, they would take their time, they'd talk to some little 7-year-old who idolized them because they were college basketball players. Those kids were gonna end up being very good in the workforce and all that. They had a sense of reality. And we're now asking our teachers that, let's be honest, a lot of times, as you said, with this disintegration of the family, they're the role models. So this is a gentleman who's trying to help a kid out, who's trying to make sure nobody's hurt, and they'll say you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, it's tough.
It is tough, and what I didn't like about it is the teacher's guilty.
Right.
Teacher's guilty, and we've already said, there's some real stinkers out there when it comes to teachers, and I've dealt with them.
Sure.
I mean, and they need to go, as quickly as possible. There's no doubt about it. But there are a lot of teachers, what I would say, who, no good deed goes unpunished. They're trying to make the best decision at a very dicey time, and with typically multiple kids around them, and they got to fall back on their memories, which dictate their values. They got to fall back on their formal education. They got to fall back on their experience, and they do what they think is right at the time, and what Mr. Klopp did, and then they have to go up against the big bad EPSB on the legal side.
With unlimited resources, unlimited people.
Yeah, and that we witnessed that today. So I know I'm doing a lot of the talking. Of course, I have a lot of feelings about what I've seen throughout my career. I just want to commend, again, there are a lot of good people in Frankfort doing a lot of good things. This statute that we changed, if I can remember right, hadn't been changed since 2001, 2002. Now the regulations have been changed, which are promulgated by the KDE, but not the statute. So to me, that's just bad business too, bad practice, not updating your statutes. So, I want to commend Mr. Klopp because it's easy to say, okay, I'll take my 1 month, 2 month, 3 month certification, suspension, I'll take it over the summer so everybody's happy. But to me, that's just perfunctory, that kind of process. Prior to House Bill 300, there was no meeting face-to-face with the teacher, like you already said today. So the first time, they got to see or hear from Mr. Klopp, other than what's written by his representative, was today. So I do want to commend you. I know how hard it's been on you and your wife and your family, and I know how hard it's been on you financially. And, very seldom do you ever want a bill named after you. So House Bill 300 is really Bill's bill. And you don't want to be that person.
No.
And I just want to thank you again because you've made it better for other teachers throughout the state of Kentucky.
Well, thank you. You pushed it through.
And Bill,
It was an eye down.
And when you were there, I guess the one thing that I will say, your principal that came, Mr. Hanley, who testified you did nothing wrong. Even the deputy superintendent said, sure, hindsight, there's certainly things, the way I act as an attorney, somebody might act a little differently. Both ways are probably right. But it did appear, with the exception of the former superintendent, who didn't even know his own policies, which was kind of appalling, the people who actually were involved both really said you did nothing wrong. And that had to be refreshing for you.
That was a really good feeling. And you spend, in what I do, I've spent like 3 years going into a building. And every day it's a little nerve-wracking, because it's like, okay, what could happen today, and how could that affect me?
Well, and what's really alarming is that in the 3 years and 10 days, they never even thought to call these witnesses to figure out. I mean, when I used to be a prosecutor, if I was getting ready to try a DUI case or something, I'd call the officer in advance and make sure, A, did they blow over the legal limit? Did they fail the field sobriety? I just didn't wait till the morning of or the day ahead to figure out, do I even have a case? That's basically what they do. They did not investigate at all. It's like the old saying in Law and Order, the police who investigate crimes and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. They probably just need to watch that. Somebody needs to go investigate, then determine if there's something. They're pretty much just doing it on the fly, to your point. They decide they need a punishment, regardless of whether facts support it. And you, unfortunately, you were a victim of that.
Yeah. Well, the wildest thing was, if you go back to the first statement I ever received, is it stated finding of facts, and there was nothing factual about it. There was nothing that was factual. It was like, it happened here, Mr. Klopp said this, he did this, he did this, he did this, and I'm reading this, and I'm like, there's video of this. It's like you just kind of made something up. It was like reading a really bad script of if you were trying to make the old-timey villain with the mustache who's putting somebody on the train tracks. It's like, okay, you're trying to turn me into this character, and that's not what happened.
So, Bill, I know when Mike was doing the bill to, for people, fortunately, in the future, they're faced with this, they'll have more protection because of Mike's bill. I know at the time he wanted you to come, you were a shy guy and you didn't want to go testify in front of the committee in the House. As we sit here today, obviously you're sitting here doing a podcast. Just so the world knows, you have no problem now going to a House or Senate committee to tell them of the need to fix the problems in front of them.
No, I would have no problem with it now. Very family-oriented person. And, I just really believe in protecting the sanctity of, my adult children, my daughter, who's, third grader, my wife, so it took a little while to know that, okay, if I do say something, how's this going to affect them? I had to know that they would be okay.
And now
that it
you're
wouldn't affect them.
Well, and now you're seeing is that, and again, the fact that, again, Mike showed up literally, I still can't believe it. I was like, when you text me, Mike and I are here, I'm like, what, Mike's coming? That it is good that somebody was willing to, that, because, everybody calls their senator, their representative, they need firsthand knowledge, because people show up and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. It is great when you can give real life experience to explain why things need to happen in government to fix it.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just showing up today.
He's been arguing with them for 3
but
years.
Even more so than that, it is very normal for my phone to ring, and I look at it and it's Mike Kleins, and I'll pick up and I'll be like, Mr. Kleins, how you doing? He's like, I'm just calling to check in. How's everything? How you holding up? How are things going? So, the amount of personal investment that he put into this from the jump really kind of blew me away. We laugh about that first time. I emailed you. I've been trying to reach out to anybody I could, like, okay, what do I do? How do I get help with this? I don't know how to navigate this. And it was recommended to me, like, hey, okay, get a hold of your congressman. I emailed him, and like literally within like 3 hours, he calls me. Like, I included my phone number, he calls me. I didn't recognize the number. Usually I ignore that if I don't know the number. But it's always an 859 area code, so I'm like, it's probably not.
Probably not spam.
Yeah, it's probably not somebody who wants to talk to me about the extended warranty on my car. So, picked up. He's like, all right, Bill, this is, Mike Klein's, and I'm calling you. The first thing he laughs about all the time, I'm like, you called me. And I was like, and he's like, yeah, you left me a message. I'm like, yeah, but you actually called. I mean, that kind of blew me away from the get-go. I think we had like a 2-hour conversation there. And, because you were to me, you were like, I've got time, I'm in the car, I'm driving back from Frankfurt. So, let's just talk.
So,
So-
I mean,
But thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
guess just in closing, obviously, I think we've all been in life. I mean, what was fun is during our breaks, literally, we all kept walking around, and it was like, we were some put up notice that said they're telecommuting or whatever. I mean, it was almost like, one of us wanted to almost tweet out to Elon Musk, hey, you might want to come check this place out today. But, just in closing, you got any final remarks, what you want to say, kind of?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to, my 2 administrators from Boone County who came down and, spoke with the hearing officers. I'm very grateful to them. Very grateful to, all the excellent work you do on my behalf. Thank you. I'm very excellent. Grateful to Mr. Kleins for all the excellent work he's doing on behalf of all of us where we live and in our district. So, it's not over yet. I'm convinced this may never end. I have a feeling that I may find out what's decided maybe 15 years after I retire. It may take that long. I have no idea about this time frame, but I'm very appreciative there's people who are walking the path with me, and I'm very appreciative I'm just trying to be as grateful as I can that I get the life I do, I get to do the job I do, most of all for the family I've got. I was very fortunate that the other day, I knew Wednesday was going to be rough. I knew today was going to be rough. I was not looking forward to doing this, something I had to do. But, my 2 sons actually made time and bought concert tickets. And I knew, Dad's going to have a rough one, so let's spend some time with them. And, and then yesterday I got home from Frankfurt, and my daughter's on her bike, and she's going nuts and having a great time. She ran out and hugged me. And my wife teaches, my wife's an incredible teacher. You would not believe her. She is a force of nature. But she taught all day at school and then went and taught little guys at a dance studio all night. And she got home, and I got to sit on the porch with her, and, we got to sit there and chat for a little bit. So, even though things are pretty rough, there's a lot I have to be grateful for. And, y'all are included in that, so thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And Mike, I guess, obviously I've probably been more critical of Katie than perhaps yourself, but, I think as Bill alluded to, I think one of the things I gather is that people really need to reach out. And I mean, friend of both of ours, Joe, I remember one time he was going down to talk about a restaurant issue or something, and I remember saying, go down there and talk. And he called me, I'm gonna drive back, and he was like, they actually listened way more to me because I wasn't a lobbyist or anything. I think sometimes people think that they don't realize that sometimes just going and being heard, saying, here's a real life issue, and putting it out there, that's how we change things. Is that a fair statement?
It's interesting, a couple of my bills and even my House concurrent resolution for autism all began in my district. Bill's a constituent, and the other couple called it. So yes, I mean, you you as constituents have great ideas, very insightful, see things, hear things, know things that we certainly do not. And so by your reaching out to us, it can really catapult some things quickly or over time, whether it's at a church festival or at any kind of event, maybe this summer. So a couple things I'd like to say in closing is, I don't know if I mentioned KEA. They did help me with some of the language in House Bill 300, so I do want to give them some credit for that. If you're, we all have tough jobs, and I'm sure that EPSB can be a tough job. I was really just disheartened by the dehumanizing of teachers and the non-humanistic approach. But if you're a teacher and you've been accused of something and you don't think it's right, you really need to contact your state representative or your senator to help advocate for you, because going up against the system, whether it's in education or other systems in Frankfort, is very daunting. I think teachers they're overmatched, they're overwhelmed, they're certainly out of their comfort zone, which is a lot of us would be, like in that hearing today. So you need some help. So again, there are some really bad actors in education that need not to be in education. But for those who have been wrongly accused or are guilty before proven innocent, certainly reach out to us, and we can be your advocate as you battle or basically advocate for yourself in your school district, or especially in Frankfort.
And I just want to end with thanking Mike and thanking Bill for, literally, we drove back from Frankfurt and said, you know what, while it's fresh in our minds, let's do a podcast. And just to show Jack we could pull it off while wishing him a happy 25th anniversary. So with that, I just want to thank you both for coming, and that's
Thank you.
all.